Just a brief highlight on the current tech layoffs. I think of recent we have noticed that that platforms, big companies like Twitter, Facebook, and others have of recent laid off many thousands and thousands of employees that are related to jobs on their platforms. And with this, there is obviously an effect or consequences of these layoffs on the various job markets for the tech people and even for non-techies. And this has a spiral, a how do they call it? We have somehow a rabbit hole, which once some tech companies start laying off, we see that other people follow suit, maybe because of the economic market, maybe because of things. So I want to open up the floor to our speakers. What do you think could be the cause of these current tech layoffs? And what, in your own opinion, do you think is the effect of these tech layoffs on Africa, on the job market, and on tech itself at large?
All right. Okay, I think it's important for those who don't know or for those who are not aware, there are a lot of tech companies who laid off a lot of employees. I think Facebook was just the biggest name amongst them, but a lot of companies have been laying off employees. And I think it's important to take into consideration the context. We are coming from a context of high booming tech jobs, and now coming after post-COVID, now a lot of those jobs are falling back down. So for the past 2 years now, we have been in COVID-19 with a lot of people being locked down in their different homes, and tech jobs gaining in popularity during that time because most people were more interested in getting tech jobs because you could actually do them remotely, especially considering that many companies switched to a remote work policy. So a lot of people got into the tech jobs. But I think now that places are opening up, now that people are living, now that many countries are able to deal with COVID and people can now go back to work, a lot of that popularity or a lot of those tech jobs now have started falling down. Many companies recruited a lot of people more than they needed to, and so on and so forth. So I think the context is very important. It's post-COVID, post-COVID-19, post that era where a lot of people were turning to remote jobs and all. So that really has to explain why, in my own opinion anyways, it explains why we are seeing all of those layoffs.
All right, thank you very much, Jeba. Maybe to chip in also on that point on the COVID-19. I feel like also the COVID-19 also gave opportunities to some of these platforms, things like social media and social media platforms, which found a new need in the, which the users found a new need and continuously had a growing interest and engagement in the platforms, which meant there was need for more employees to be able to handle that growing need, to satisfy that growing interaction and maybe newer features that were needed to be able to entertain and keep people glued to their phones while during the COVID pandemic, because most people were at home, they had little to nothing to do. And so turning to some of these social media platforms was their go-to ways of getting entertainment and all the rest. And so with that growth in need, I feel like there was a need for more manpower to be able to handle that need. And now that COVID, as you said, is gone, many people are actually back to their normal lives. They're actually going out, doing things other than being on their phones, other than being on their devices. And so that need that was actually that kind of phone need that was provided during the COVID pandemic period has actually fallen. And with that, the need for more employees to handle the job that is not more there is not there as well. And so maybe that is one of the things that obviously made some of the employees redundant and they had to be laid off. Any?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. What do you? All right. Tari, you can go on, please.
Yeah, just following from what you were saying, like the fact that many people adopted social media, it led to high revenue, because during that period, like during the COVID period, that a lot of people actually went to 3-figure billions, right? Where Mark Zuckerberg invested how many months added about 100 billion to his network, same as Elon Musk and all of that. So they were top tier. So you saw a lot of the billionaires, people like move up in terms of their value. Then one of the reasons Mark Zuckerberg was like, "Hey, I'm laying off today," is because like he saw the trend that was happening during the COVID. He thought it was something that was going to last longer than that. So they actually went into over hiring. And now when they realize that the trend now started going in the opposite direction post-COVID. Then they just had to make the hard decision of laying off. So yeah. So how we were affected by is mostly because most like a company like Facebook also has establishments in Africa. So I think they have an office in Lagos, Nigeria. So maybe might not be the only office, probably there are other offices elsewhere. So that's how we got affected. Most of the guys who got affected from the layoffs are guys who were working for these multinational companies, and also the fact that like a lot of these tech companies, their revenues actually started reducing. And someone like Facebook has been investing a lot of money in its meta, and for them to reduce, like not to have that cost, like that loss much visible to their investors, they have to save. So one way of saving was laying off people, so that it reduces their loss. So because maybe at the end they had to fire more than they hired during the COVID period. So yeah. So I would essentially say most Africans who got affected were Africans who were working for those companies in what offices in Nigeria. The case of Twitter, where guys were hired today and were fired the same week, like without notice even. So yeah.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Tani. Just maybe to add a little bit more to what you've said, I also feel like maybe it's kind of a domino effect where some changes in some of these big tech companies came almost at the time too that the COVID was almost ending, which meant various factors came together to give this negative effect where which made many people redundant. You see, for example, if I'm not mistaken, Meta, Facebook Meta, which switch its priorities, its main global priorities from the social media platforms and now towards the metaverse, which meant most of its focus will now be going towards the metaverse, and then the teams doing other projects may seem a little bit more redundant. And then we see things like also Twitter, where we have now a new CEO of Twitter, and his own ideology of work that should be done is different from the previous CEO, which also meant reshuffling things and maybe as an effect making other certain employees redundant. Am I right?
No, I just wanted to add on to the point that it's really the COVID that really changed the mindset of people, and they really felt like people were going to go online and multi online and that of working. But as we have seen, things didn't turn out that way. And also to add that it didn't really impact Africa that much, mostly because COVID that was a drastic. Yeah.
All right, yeah, thank you. And now, just basing on what you've just said, do you think this has a negative impact on remote jobs? Does it mean remote jobs from the hype? A few years ago, we knew that remote job is the future of jobs, especially for the Africans, because this is the ways that Africans can access jobs from countries that they are not actually located in, obviously, and in some of these big companies that otherwise they wouldn't have access to it. Does it mean the remote job is actually going to die away, or there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel?
I would say there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, because these are not actually some of the factors that drive remote jobs. The drive for remote jobs in Africa is a drive to save on cost. So a drive to have cheaper labor, a drive to maximize profit, right? So the culture of work at the office is more a concern for big companies, but for most companies that are small companies, startups who cannot afford to pay hundreds of thousands to developers, UX designers, they prefer to source out talent in the underdeveloped countries. So it's an economy issue, right? So I don't think remote work will suffer any consequence per se, because it's just driven by the search for cheaper market, cheaper labor. So that what happened to the big company is mostly with people working remotely, maybe in the US. But regarding to us here in Africa, we are some sort of part of what we call a supply chain, right? So, or a logistic problem, so which we are bringing a solutions to for them to hire X employee at $200,000 or $450,000. Better they invest here in Africa. That amount you can hire a whole development team, right? For a year, right? 2 or 3 developers. That's an average of, let's say, 25,000 K or 30,000 K, right? So if you split that, you have about three developers you can run on that rate for a year. So the economics of it all, I think it will not really affect remote work with regards to Africans, but definitely affects on-site jobs actually.